progeny, perspective, and the pursuit of the collective. Jingle incoming as we add to our team. Thank you for your patience as we take our first baby steps here. I'm Aliya, your host, and this is Connective Collective, where guests come from all backgrounds and all levels of knowledge in family history, and we discover together. Before we meet, they send me one of their ancestors for me to do a deep dive on. I prepare a presentation, then we meet and go over the information in the hopes that it is the impetus they needed to get over the hump wherever they're at in their family history journey. They may already know lots about them, their family may have very little information on them, or it may be a roulette choice. Research done for these episodes is only done with free resources so that you can be empowered to start or re-pick up your journey as well. This podcast is for anyone, anywhere. We discover the good, the bad, but always the beauty. This is episode 1. I discovered something about myself in this episode. My computer audio is absolute rubbish, so it's mixed and fixed to an enjoyable level, but we shall do better in the future, I promise. I pinky swear. Okay, bye. Here's the episode. 10-4, I've got a hostage situation in progress. Today's guest is
Chase.
Hello! So good to see you. Thank you for being my guinea pig. I really appreciate you bearing with me as I get all the technological stuff set up. So today, what is your drink of choice? Pop, potion, or puree?
So I don't know what you would call this. It's like a pressed juice. And it's a tropical pineapple, apple, mango, banana smoothie. So maybe like pureed.
Puree. Delicious. Puree. Even though potion technically usually refers to alcohol, today I feel like I have a potion because it's like a mixture of a bunch of packets. It's water. I've woke up feeling very dehydrated and I love liquid IVs. So I've got a liquid IV in there with raspberry lemonade and it is delicious. And also I donate plasma. So fun fact, you can make some good side cash if you're ever hurting for some cash donating plasma, and my veins are always very, very small, so I kind of have been living off of liquid IVs so that my veins are thick enough to donate.
I used to donate all the time too.
I just never lived near one, so I didn't know what it was. But speaking of which, I didn't live near one because I lived in the middle of nowhere, Hawaii, where we met. Chase and I are friends from college, and to very much date us, we 2014?
Yeah, it was 2014.
Woo! That is more than a decade ago.
I know. Already had like the 10-year high school reunion and everything.
Oh my gosh. Did you go to yours?
I did go to mine, and it was crazy. It was so weird.
I feel like you have a lot to show. Aren't you a homeowner?
I am. Yeah, this is my plain Jane, but I'm in her right now.
Okay, so what exactly do you do? I know you have like an on-season and off-season. I never know what state you're in or country. What do you do?
I am just a door-to-door sales bro. And so solar has been kind of my thing for the last 5 years, but I've done security, I've done windows. Right now I'm doing like a roof thing. It's just sales, right? So door-to-door sales, which is kind of a really hard market to be in. It's so up and down. And also I just go where the money is. And oftentimes that's in other states. Yeah. So I worked in Hawaii and that's when I would see you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it just depends on where the money is and where the opportunity is the state I'm going to be in. Fair. Pretty much.
But you're also such a real because you're one of the people that I have been lucky enough to keep in contact with the best. I'm also like a terrible long distance friend, but I think I've had like 1 or 2 layovers where I've met you in Salt Lake, like really quickly, like we met up on a layover or you flew out for the new year to come hang out with me with another one of our friends. And I just freaking adore you. So I'm so happy to have you on the show. Connective Collective. We haven't come up with a jingle yet. My brother's girlfriend is in this really cool program and she's gonna do our jingle for us here in the next like month or 2. So jingle incoming. But for now, I will just say it in random voices. Today, let's go right into it. Chase. So Chase is a true American girly. She is, and also, like, feel free to jump in and correct me at any point. She is first generation American on her father's side. Her father is from Tonga, right? Like from Tonga.
Right.
Oh, and then your mom is pioneer ancestry, your good old classic American mix. Do you know what your mom's general mix is?
I think there's a lot of English in there, like a lot of English, and actually a lot of Irish, a lot of Ireland.
Ooh. You've got two different kind of pioneer stories in terms of the American dream and where you are now, and that very much reflects in your work ethic. First thing I just also want to say is this is all my personal research and word of mouth and what I've been able to collect. This is for you to go forth and to untangle and to straighten out. So, not necessarily everything I say will be 100% correct. It is out in the ether now for you to fix and correct. And I would love for you to maybe, if you do find things, you voice message me later and I can play it on a future episode where you say, okay, I figured this out and I straightened this line out. And actually, for clarification on this thing, this is what I found. Sort of a vibe. So I'm going to present everything about your ancestor as though it is true and correct. And, it's a fun adventure and you can be Indiana Jones and go fix it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so first thing I wanted to say was I have known you for over a decade, and I've known your parents for about 10 years because I've known your parents since like 2015. And tell me why, maybe I'm just dumb, but I've never noticed that you have a different last name than your parents, which I now understand why, but I want to hear you explain why you're a Talveli, but your parents are Kulihapais.
Okay, this story is so confusing to me too because I don't know if
Oh,
anybody else.
great, because I can explain this to you now, but I wanted to know what you know.
Okay, I don't even know if this is like right. So hopefully you can help me with some insight. But technically speaking, I think we have a couple last names, and it had something to do with like my dad coming to America. Because the real Talveli isn't even truly the real last name. It's supposed to be Taweli. And I'm just confused across the board, honestly. But Kuliapa is the actual true last name. Like, I'm not a true Tauleli. And so I'm confused, actually.
Exciting. I love this. So your parents just decided to give you a separate last
I don't know why they like changed their own on like Facebook and stuff, because that's our true last name. But
I
it's,
see.
yeah,
Legally, it's not Guliapai.
right.
They've just changed it as they've discovered information for themselves as well. You're like, I don't know, girl.
I'm waiting to know because I saw them do the change and I was like, wait, why are you guys like that? And he told me it had something to do with them coming over, or
Okay.
him, because of course my mom's from she's been in the States for a while. So I understand that we have like Guliapai and then there's two other last names that kind of apply to us too. Super confusing.
Okay. This is so fun. All right. So for the ancestor that you sent me, do you know little, lots, or was it a roulette choice for you?
It was kind of roulette choice.
Okay. When you sent him to me, it was bare. She was bare bones. And I
Mm-hmm.
was scared. I was like, so Chase sent me one of her Tongan ancestors, third great grandfather.
That
So,
sounds
like,
right.
yeah, late 1800s. He would have been a young man in the 1920s in Polynesia in Tonga. And so I was like, oh no, is there going to be enough information on them? And so just in case, I had you send me a white relative as well. Luckily, I'm
Mhm.
happy to report that the very, very bare bones information there was on him at the very tip of the iceberg led to a massive iceberg underneath. So I'm very excited to go through this with you. I'm going to present everything to you as though you don't know it, but what I tend to find when I do stuff like this with other clients or with my friends is that it shakes up a lot of memories that you've heard from like grandparents or stuff where you're like, wait a second. that's how that relates to this or whatever, you know what I mean? Jump in whenever. I'll just kind of start going through stuff, make comments, it's a conversation, but especially if something sounds familiar, say so. The reason why I was worried at first is because Tonga has a rich history and they're very good at genealogy, but so much of it is oral. So it just depends on the family how much of the work is done. I am blessed to already know so much about Polynesian family history and how it's like kept and everything just because of the more than a decade that I spent in Hawaii. I was a genealogy specialist for an area on the North Shore. So I already have like helped a lot of people try to sort through family history. I was very grateful that I already kind of knew what I was getting myself into going into this. And also with so many Christian faiths coming into Tonga, there was a lot of, baptism registries and stuff like that. So there are records. It just kind of depends. Happy to report you have so much homework to do, and I am going to give you links to everything. Obviously, there's no time date for this. You can also give it to your parents to like help you sort through, or whoever is interested in your family. I'm going to give you all of the resources I found, but I had to stop myself from untangling too much because I was like, no, I'm going to pass on the torch to Chase. This is now her baby to take care of because your family history goes at least to the 1400s
Oh, wow.
on this line. And there is so much to be untangled because how it tends to go, especially in these highly oral societies, is people will just make their family trees and just start inputting information on Family Search, which I love Family Search because it's super accessible, it's free, it's super easy to navigate, but it is a crowdsource, an open crowdsource of information. So it's susceptible to people coming in and changing it that don't know very much about the history and what's going on. So that's why it's so important that you build robust profiles on people as you do studies on them, because so many people just get frustrated. Then you have these completely skewed lines on these different websites. As you build a profile on Family Search, like adding links, adding as much information as you can find about the person, helps other people then connect that person instead of creating a new person. So I probably spent, I don't want to panic anyone who is also related to this line because I came in and put my grubby paws all over the family tree. But I did combine probably over 100 names just of repeats and repeats and repeats. And the thing is I felt very confident just with my level of knowledge and how family history works that they were the same person. Situations like names of both spouses were correct. Or for example, one person, it would be one spouse, but six wives. And the thing is sometimes that happened. People had, sometimes they're listed as wives, but they were just had a child out of wedlock situation. But then it would be like, oh, the kids are all the same names. And the wives are only slightly variation different names. So it turns out that it's actually going to be the same person because the names of the moms are just different, like first name, middle name, and then actually maybe a village location. 8 wives becomes like 2. Yeah. So I did a ton of combining, and that's basically what because you come from a very famous family line in Tonga, lots and lots of people have just gone in and created multiple accounts for all these people. And I've kind of started giving you a more robust profile for each person so that they can start to absorb the other people who are also them in Family Search. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there's so much untangling that you can do. I basically, well, I'll get into where I stopped myself. But how it started was you gave me the name Ulukalala Ata Ha'amea Siausi Finau. So that's the original name. And it had Ha'amea in quotation marks like it was a nickname or it was the name he went by. So, again, from my understanding, all the research I did, I talked to specialists. I read documents, I read Tongan legal documents, and I also read New Zealand legal documents and British legal documents. I read lots and lots of information. There's so much information about your people out there. What I understand now is the name is Finau Ulukalala the 6th Ata Siausi o Ha'amea. So let's break that down. He is the last of the Finau Ulukalala dynasty. So the first half of his name is a title. Finau Ulukalala the sixth Ata. Finau is a very common, last name now. It means warrior or the chief line, but that's the original meaning of the word Finau. Before Ulukalala, the line of Ulukalala starts, which is another title, there is a line of Finau, which is a line of chiefs that become Ulukalala, which is why it's a double title already right there. He's the sixth in the line, which is why there's VI. In Family Search, it hates when you do the number six, TH. So that's why it's always going to be the VI or whatever. But sometimes that gets confusing, especially when you're like, Viliami is a very common name. So then it's like, Vi? What's his name? Vi? So it's just a double checking sources.
Right.
Because that's what I got confused at first. I was like, where is this nickname Vi coming from? Maybe dumb until I finally saw 2, 3, 5. I was like, oh, okay. It's a numeral system. We got this. Ulukalala. So your family has strong ties to Fiji, a specific, which, off the top of my head, can't quite remember, but a specific chiefly family in Fiji you have a strong tie to, and Ulukalala is the Tongan iteration of the term thick black hair. In Fijian, it's Ururovo, which is also thick black hair. Obviously sixth in the line. And then he is the only person of the Finau Ulukalalas who also has the title Ata, which is from his mother's line, because his mom was the final Ata because she was from Kolavai, which is on Tongatapu, I want to say. But the Ulukalala line is the chiefly line from Vava'u and Ha'apai. And for those of you who are not familiar with Tongan geography, those are different island groupings. The main island of Tonga is Tongatapu, and Nuku'alofa is the capital on Tongatapu. So his mother was a city girl, is what we'll say, a city girly from Tongatapu, and she was an Ata, and so her title of Ata was passed down to her son, and then he got Finau Ulukalala the sixth from his father, and that comes from Vava'u and Ha'apai, separate island grouping, but all a part of the Kingdom of Tonga. And then obviously Siausi, we know, is George in English. And for those of you who are not familiar with Tongan language, there's a lot of English names that came over with Christianization and missionary work and all that stuff. George does mean farmer or earth worker, which I think is very interesting because it's a quite popular Tongan name. And there's a lot of farmers. And then we know in Tongan language, O means of, or E is also like born of. So it kind of depends on the situation. I think he wasn't born in Ha'amea, but he is of Ha'amea. So from what I understand, Ha'amea is the location. So he's the man of Ha'amea. Like, I guess, kind of like saying, like, Laie boy. All right, it's Laie boy. But so his name was Siausi, but they just called him Ha'amea because of the leadership roles he ended up having. That's the name breakdown. Any comments so far?
No, that's actually just crazy. Like, I'm looking at this slide, like, in disbelief that this is how much you've got so far. Like, I already am just like, what the heck?
Babe, this is not even, this is like still above water iceberg level.
I'm already, like, in shock when I look at this layout. I'm like, what?
I know, right? So this is technically where Ha'amea is, which from what I understand is near Liahona campus. Have you been to Tonga?
I have.
Okay, so do you remember seeing the three-headed coconut tree?
You know what? Maybe that rings a bell, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
I was 12.
So yeah, fair enough. So it's near Liahona campus, which is right near the three-headed coconut tree. I think is like the biggest visitor attraction near Ha'amea is for landmark purposes. If you're listening and you know what I'm talking about, there we go. This is a general timeline of what we're going to talk about. This is all specific to Ha'amea. I'm going to call him Ha'amea for the purposes of the rest of this presentation because it's a lot of titles. We've got the Ulukalala dynasty before he's born, very set up. I'm going to talk a little bit about that dynasty just to give you a small little taste of what happened all before that. So we've got the Finau Ulukalala, who was nicknamed the Hot-Headed. And again, I'm going to give you all these resources so that you have access to it and can do further research. But this is taken from people who have literally done their doctorates on Tongan history and all that jazz. They are alive, and I will thank them at the end. So the dynasty began in the 18th century, but died out in 1960 with your third great grandfather. The first Finau Ulukalala is named the first, but his location was Ma'ofanga. So they say he's Finau Ulukalala I Ma'ofanga, which is how I have his name fixed. I fixed a lot of titles and names so that the lineage made more sense in Family Search. He comes from the Tuikana Kupolu, which were the dynasty pre-Ulukalala. So that's where you have tons more to untangle. I started untangling it and I was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna touch it anymore because I'm gonna be up until 4 a.m., which I was up very, very. I probably did like 6 hours of just untangling, which I love. I'm like, let me get it there. But I left it alone. Now you can go do that. That was the most powerful dynasty about 1650 in Tongatapu. So his father, Tui Tuiohu, was the younger brother of Ma'afu o Tuitonga, and he was the next Tui Kano Kupolu. Tui Tuiohu tried his luck in Vava'u because he was the younger brother of Ma'afu o Tuitonga. So basically, there were two royal brothers in Tonga, again, from what I understand. The younger brother decided he wanted to run things kind of his own way, and so he went off to Vava'u, a different island grouping, to rule over there, but still technically not as king. He just was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go be in charge over there. So he took all of his warriors and went to Vava'u. So now we have the kingly lineage kind of split, except for the fact that it's still one kingdom. It's just half of the kingdom is now being ruled by another brother. So the second Ulukalala Ifeletoa is Fangupo. So his name is Fangupo, just like your third great grandfather is Siaosi, but he's from Feletoa in Vava'u. So he is the ruler from Feletoa of Vava'u, if that makes sense. But from what I understand, that brother that split off, the first Ulukalala that split off from his brother that was ruling in Tongatapu, he went to Fiji to be trained how to be a terrifying warrior. And the Fijians gave him the title of Ulukalala, which is thick black hair, which is interesting to think of because Fijians have super thick black hair as well. So maybe
Right.
I just had like some wild stuff going on. Who knows? But this started a long time relationship between the not kingdom of Vava'u and Fiji. So that's where the Ulukalala starts. But he was already Finau, he was already chief, and so that's where we get the double title now. So it's Finau Ulukalala. The second Finau Ulukalala is from Felatoa, and the unpopularity of the current king of Tonga, who was his uncle then at this point, because now he's his brother, he's the brother's son. Apparently, he was super cruel and arbitrary. So the second Ulukulala, who is Felatoa Fangupo, decided to take over Ha'apai near Vava'u as well. So now this brother's son is ruling over like half of Tonga. Ha'apai and Vava'u, and then they are keeping Tongatapu separate. And they planned the murder of the king because they think that if they just murder this supposedly evil king, and again, it depends on who's writing the history books.
Right.
So like maybe he's like the great king. He's like, I'm trying to keep it all unified, and these guys keep going off and doing their own thing, and perspective, right? So from the history books, for your people's sake, for your lineage's sake, he was this evil guy. So the second Ulukalala decides this plot against the king to kill him, which is done in 1799 during a first fruits offering. So it's like, gosh, can you imagine the movie of this? They go to pay homage and then murder the king. Like, ooh, not so fun for them, but great movie. This starts a 50-year civil war. Congratulations, you Tonga. So this starts a civil war in Tonga that lasts 50 years. They thought it was gonna be this happy thing where, yay, the evil king is dead. Now you all can live peacefully. But it made a lot of people angry. even though he had the power, this second Ulukalala had the power apparently to take over Tonga as a whole. So to include conquer of Tongatapu, which is that main island again for our audience who don't know geography super well in Tonga. He decided to leave Tongatapu alone. He just didn't even want to deal with them. Lol, T. And just kept Ha'apai and Vava'u separate. And the reason why he was so successful against them was because he had gained a bunch of cannons from European soldiers who got stranded in Tonga. So he had gotten like this devastating Western technology in order to create his stronghold in those outer islands. And there's a very famous European man named William Mariner who got stranded in Tonga and became pretty good friends with the Ulukalala line and kept records, very good records of what was going on during all these wars. Like literal raids, island to island raids, destroying villages, destroying farms in order to maintain power. The second Ulukalala still on him. He was very, I'm like, again, perspective, because this sounds terrifying. He was very infamous, and one of the things he would do for punishment for his enemies and for chiefs who wouldn't succumb to his rule, they would be tied to leaking canoes and sent adrift at sea to sink and die. Ba-bam, bow, crazy.
Ah,
How you feeling?
crazy. This is so crazy to hear. Like I'm just looking at this, like not knowing. I literally even thought, like Ulu Kalala. I've never seen it written out. Like I just have only. I literally thought his name was Ukalala. So everything you're telling me is just crazy. So are you saying this is what his this is his father and
This
him
is
and his
still so the ancestor you sent me is the sixth Ulukalala. So we've only talked about,
gotcha.
I've let you know that there's a pre-dynasty for you to untangle, which is the main lineage of the current ruler, from what I understand, in Tonga. You come from a separate family line who basically tried to break apart Tonga and create their own kingdom of Vava'u.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
So
gotcha.
your ancestor that you sent me is the sixth, and I've only talked to you up until the second so far. So we still have three, four, five to talk about.
Oh my gosh. Okay, gotcha. So this is Ulukalala number two.
Yes, correct. Okay, we have talked about Ulukalala the second for simplicity's sake. We'll keep it at that. He's the guy that drowned his enemies at sea in leaking canoes. All right, now going on to his son Moengangongo, who is technically would be the third Ulukalala, but he ends up dying only 2 years into his reign, so he's kind of like a halvesy, and then the official third is going to be his younger brother, who you are a descendant of. But he is also very cool, so I'm just going to quickly just let you know about him. He also was good friends with William Mariner, who was his dad's friend. So he was kind of like Uncle Mariner, I guess, from what I understand. Uncle Palangi, white guy. He really badly wanted to go to Europe with him. Mariner says that Moengangongo was very smart. They would often have long discussions about astronomy and physics. And when Mariner was rescued by a European ship, he begged to go to England despite knowing he would lose his status as king because he wanted to learn how to read and write and gain knowledge. He was not permitted to come for probably a number of reasons. They are not disclosed that I was able to see, but he was king for 2 years, but passed away before having any children that would be able to take the title. He might have had children out of wedlock. I didn't quite understand that. I know for a fact you can't pass the title on to anyone born out of wedlock. He died 2 years after being named Ulukalala III, so he is technically not Ulukalala III because it goes to Duapasi, who is the official Ulukalala III, the younger brother. He's known as Finau Ulukalala III Ipo Ono, which is a part of Neafu where he ends up dying a little bit later, which is also in Vava'u. He's, again, the second son of Fangupo, who drowns his enemies. so he becomes the Vava'u king in 1811, but it's not until 1820 that he gets all of the islands under unification separate from Tongatapu. So there's a lot of infighting, but he finally gains full control over those islands. At this point, they get all of the outer islands all under control. And then because the new king of Tonga, head in Tongatapu, decides to give all of Tonga to Christianity, Tuapasi decides to join in on this. And so now Fina Ulukalala is like a title of the person who rules in the outer islands but is under the king. So they're not their own separate kingdom, even though for a little bit they were. For a good 50 years, they really were.
Mm-hmm.
After Tuapasi is Matekitonga, and he's Tupo Totai Nafe Telai Matekitonga, and he's the fourth Finau. And he's the only son of his father because his dad had him. Well, his dad got his mother pregnant the same year he dies. So I don't even know if they met each other. He's raised now without a dad. He has no father. He's sent to that Fijian tribe that this lineage has super close ties to be a warrior, Vakabau, Cakobau. If I remember correctly, the C is a the. He goes to be in Fiji to be raised as like a vassal. King Siausi I proclaims a new constitution in 1875, and it abolishes all of the old chiefly titles except for 20 who were elevated to noble status. So 1875 is when they adopt the English way of framing their monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Fina Ulukalala's that title stays as one of those royal titles. And I'll explain that a little bit later on too, just because that can be confusing for those of us who are not born and raised in a monarchy. After Mateki Tonga is Misini. So he is the fifth Ulukalala, and he acts as like the governor of Vava'u. He fulfills ministerial posts in Tongan government. And when Queen Salote, who is one of the most famous queens of Tonga, she ends up going to high school in New Zealand. And there's tons of information. You can see photos of her at her all girls boarding school in New Zealand and all that. So she was young, but she was already queen. So Misini, who is Ha'mea's father, so Ulukalala the fifth, is actually the regent while she is too young to rule, which means he is acting ruler. This is still, it's crazy because this is like a family that split and then comes apart and then splits and comes apart. Your fourth great grandpa is regent of all Tonga while the famous Queen Salote is growing up, which can explain probably a lot of the reason why Haamea and Queen Salote end up being very, very close friends. People often try to make it romantic between them, but historically speaking, among the people who have done the research, they highly reject that theory and just say that they were very, very close, very fond of each other, but it was not romantic. They did not have children together. And
Were they off generationally? Like, was there like a weird age
no,
gap? Like, she was a little bit older.
I think they were close enough in age because his dad was the regent while she was in high school, and so he was about her age.
Ukulala 5, number 5.
Ukulala 5 was the regent, and
Right. Over her
Ukulala 6
was around her
his
age.
dad, and so they were about the same age, the queen and Haamea.
Okay. Is it because they were also relatives-ish?
Yeah, and they were relatives from like 7 generations past, which Polynesians really keep track of that stuff. And especially
Right.
if you were from the lineage that almost ended hers, they
Right.
would know that.
Was it two? Is that what you were saying? Is it was two brothers that split
Yeah, it was a
originally?
younger brother that went to Vava'u to lay power in his own way because he didn't probably like the way his older brother was doing it.
Right. And then his son tried to end.
Yeah, tried to make a fully separate Vavahu. The nephew ended up trying to kill the king in Main Tonga, which ended up making the 50-year civil war.
Got it.
And I apologize if I'm oversimplifying that history to anyone who knows this history super well. Please correct me in the comments or email or whatever you want to do to let me know I was wrong. I will take it. The fifth dies in 1938, and then we have Haamea, who is Ulukalala the sixth, who will be the last of the Ulukalala dynasty, but technically the Ulukalala title still exists today. Because Haamea's mother her line died without any successors. That's why he was also given the title of Ata. Ata is like I want to say like a PTO president vibes versus because it's a smaller area, it's more of like a village rather than an island grouping. He had both of those titles. In 1930, he wanted to marry Fusipala, who was the half sister of Queen Salote. Queen Salote had a consort. I'm not sure if they were married at this time or if they were just betrothed, but his name was Tungi Male Fihi, and they decided that it was not smart for the half sister of the queen to go and marry Ha'amea because they were worried about them breaking off and creating a separate kingdom of Vava'u. That is how they took that proposal. So I guess there was enough still rumbling under there for that to be a genuine fear. She ends up dying alone. She doesn't have any kids. She never marries. Forbidden love. So that's where we get into this part of the presentation. Now you have that whole Ulukalala dynasty, which is the second dynasty you come from. So you've got to go untangle the other dynasty prior to that because it is a mess. So, so he's born in the main island, Tongatapu in Tonga. That is in the late 1800s. And then he's got several partners. And so there's that forbidden love. He's denied the ability to marry the sister of Salote. He ends up having at least 4 children with different women, but he does end up marrying a woman who her middle name was Tuna. So to the family, she is referred to as Tuna. His only wife is Tuna, and they end up adopting a daughter and taking care of her, but she is not their biological child. And so he has no heirs and no one to pass his title on to, which is why he is the end of the dynasty because he can't even pass it on. Even though he has sons, he cannot pass it on to them because they were born out of wedlock. So like his father, he goes into service of the queen and the crown. He serves very close with Queen Salote as a diplomat of Tonga. He is governor of Vava'u. He accompanies her several times on diplomatic trips to other countries like Fiji and New Zealand and Australia, I believe. He ends up dying on one of these trips in his 70s. Yeah, in Auckland, New Zealand. He is transported back to Tonga to be buried in the Chiefly graveyard. Now we're going to delve more into his life, but that is the general timeline. How are we feeling so far?
That is so crazy. Okay, that's really cool. It's really cool to know. And 70 is a pretty good age.
I went through so much stuff online with Queen Salote. The West loved her so much and was so fascinated by her. There's gotta be photos of Ulukalala the Sixth somewhere that just aren't labeled maybe yet as him, and maybe that'll come out. There's a lot of cool things with AI coming out that are helping with family history in that regards, like facial recognition. I really do think we're going to find eventually more photos of him just because she was so highly documented. And I would highly encourage, I've included a couple links in the basically your debrief that I'm going to send you with like information and where to hunt down more of this. This is like the nice presentation. And then I have my scattered crazy notes for you to also have. There's some links to some videos of her talking and going on these tours and being greeted at all these places. And I'm like, gosh, he's got to be in the background here somewhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about these 2 dynasties, the Tuikanokopolu, and that is the pre-Finau Ulukalala. And it goes back to at least the 1400s, but there's so many dates that are screwed up and wrong in Family Search. And I think also what is important to remember is that when children in a dynasty are born out of wedlock, they are often raised by grandparents. So sometimes the generations and the dates will be very messed up because someone will think, oh, but so and so is their mom and dad. And it's actually grandma and grandpa. And that's why the dates are so messed up. And so those relationships need to be fixed.
Right.
What people have to remember in Family Search is it has to be the biological parents listed in order for the line to be correct. But you can always put adoptive parents or raised by and have a second grouping of parents. It just can't be the preferred set of parents. That's all for you to figure out later. There's a lot of fame, lore, and things to fix with this. So I just wanted to put that slide in there. So you've got so much history for especially the Polynesian Islands. I'm sure you could go back even further because there are songs that people still sing about the Tui Kano Kupolu line. People still sing songs about them. So there is oral history on top of primary sources that were written down because there were multiple people that got stranded. So William Mariner was in the 1800s, but Captain Cook also talks about your dynasty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you sent me your person, there was only one photo attached, and it's from a book of Fuensalote's, or a book that was written about her. But he is in the middle, Haamea. The other two are not his brothers, from what I understand. I believe they're other people who worked in government. Don't quote me on that, could be wrong. I asked AI, and I did a couple different renderings of this to make sure, like, bone structure and shadowing were all correct to make me a clearer image of the man in the middle, and that is what I got. And I was pretty meticulous about lining up grid for grid sections of the face just because, obviously it's AI and it makes mistakes too. But this is the clearer image I got, which I think was pretty cool because I'm like, that looks like a Tongan man for sure.
Right.
Any thoughts so far?
That is so crazy.
I know.
I don't know. I see, like, I'm thinking about pictures of my grandpa too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's wild. And for all of the scary things of AI, there's also so much good that it's going to do. So
Right. That
excited.
is so neat and cool. And his hair is kind of funny.
Oh, well, that's the style. That was
Yeah,
the style for sure. So this was the 1920s. The original photo is in the 1920s.
that's so cool.
Okay, so let's talk about Talveli versus Kuli Hot Pie again. You wondered what the heck your name was and why. The answer is neither of these are correct. The answer is your great grandpa was adopted because he was born out of wedlock.
Oh
None of
yeah,
them
I
are
knew that.
correct.
Oh my gosh. Okay, okay. Sorry. I'm just still like, what the heck? 'Cause,
Not
you
to
know,
shake up your whole life. I want you to read this.
okay. I'm like freaking out right now.
So go ahead and read this out loud for everyone.
Talveli was the adoptive father of my great grandpa Sione Potowaine Kuliapai. Talveli's name was Asipele Talveli Kuliapai. Sione's biological father was Lukalala Hamea. Talveli was ordered to marry Sione's mother because she was pregnant with Lukalala's son. All of Hamea's children were out of wedlock, which is why the dynasty ends with him. The oldest of Haamea's four children was Sione Potowaine.
All right. That is why you have Tauveli Kulihapai as two last names because when you come to America, you have to pick one. And his name was probably so when he came over, he had the Tauveli Kulihapai as a two-part last name from his adoptive grandfather.
He was ordered to marry.
Yeah. So that's for you to figure out why. I didn't find, I found some things but they weren't like, I don't know why he was ordered to marry her.
Right. Like, this child needs a father.
That, or I mean, it could be that she wasn't a noble, she was a commoner, but because of the religious influx, they were like, she's not having this child out of wedlock, even though the child was not of the right father. It could be that maybe she was a commoner, but she was village royalty, and so it wasn't proper for her to just have a child out of wedlock. I mean, who knows? So there
Right.
might be more records on that. That's for you to find out. But you are
This is so
not a
crazy.
tall belly, you are not a kuliapai. You are, because that's who raised you, right? They are family still, but it's not your blood name.
Right. My blood name would be
Hamea, I guess.
Haamea. That
Yeah.
is so weird. That is so weird. Because
But
we've never heard that one. Ever.
family history be wild and okay, so that's not even the end. Let's go. More stuff. Okay, so one of the records I was able to find for one of his trips to this trip was specifically from Auckland back to Nuku'alofa, and this was a January 1948 trip. You see right here. Again, Ulukalala is a title, but because for simplicity's sake, they can't do all the titles and then the multiple last names. So Ulukalala is seen sometimes as a last name, but it's a title. So that's just for your
Mm.
information. So Mr. Ulukalala is age 57. He's listed as the governor of Oahu, and he is a Tongan national. He's getting off at the port in Nuku'alofa. This is the ship that he rode. This was the main ship that went between all of those islands. This is the ship he ends up being transported in also for his last trip to New Zealand and then coming home in a coffin. This is the Union Steamship Company of New Zealand's boat called the Matua. I mean, I also have links to, you can see like the dining car, the smoking lounge. Like I have photos of all of that stuff too. But this is around the time he would have ridden it, what it looks like, all those fun people. It's just cool to see, I think,
That is so
all this
cool.
stuff too. So that is the ship that brought him. It was called the Matua. And you can look at all of the ship's information. So in 1946, so 2 years prior to this trip, there was a volcano that erupted in one of the outer islands of Tonga. And this ship did a rescue mission and brought a lot of those islanders, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, to New Zealand temporarily. So I wondered if this 1948 trip was just like a normal trip to just accompany Queen Salote, or if it was bringing people back from that were refugees. I don't know, but it was pretty close to that volcano eruption that I wondered if that was what he was doing over there. This is the only record I could find so far of him coming back on the ship because this is the actual ship's manifest versus
Mm.
the story of like, and he took the Matua again. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he dies in 1960. So this is just the last trip of record, but he did come home and then go back again with her. But the last trip of record is he accompanies Queen Salote in 1949 to New Zealand. He dies in service to Her Majesty Queen Salote in Auckland. His body is transported on the boat. They have to, the boat has to make port at all the different islands along the way. So when it stops in Suva, a Fijian high chief who has remained close to this dynasty accompanies his body all the way back to Tonga for the funeral procession and everything. And he's buried at Malealoa, which is the chiefly graveyard near Ha'amea's house in Nuku'alofa, Nuikasa, which Nuikasa is Newcastle in Tongatapu. Queen Salote again had this deep relationship with him, a deep love for him. She was a very well-known poet. She's got books of her poetry published. And she wrote at least two different song poems about his passing. Do you want to read this first one and then you can go into read the second one?
Yeah. Dear home of Newcastle, standing at the base of Sia with the stream called Fotu Afinema, once trickling but now empty, not a drop left. Ha'amea, what strange behavior is this? Not getting up to greet me in Finau's house. All would be astir when I enter Ulukalala. Talk to me about your lost voyage. Were you perhaps belittled by the old woman of Ha'avea? For you to leave her in New Zealand to follow your grandchildren, Uluvalu and Taufa, Siu Ilikutapu, and Fusipala. And the old man, Maulupe Kotoafa, Ha'amea, I will speak out so the stranger may know.
This is an English translation.
Right?
So it probably sounds really pretty in Tongan, and the websites I give you are going to have the original Tongan for you to look at as well. Tongan language poetry, as you know, but for our listeners who don't know, Tongan language poetry makes great use of heliaki, which is metaphoric language, to make culture specific references to the knowledge shared by Tongan speakers. So this can make literal translations obviously difficult without using annotations, and the connotations of kinships and connections in Heliaki often require explanation to non-Tongan speakers. And so this was given as an example in The Queen's Tears at the Passing of Tangata o Ha'amea, which is the name of this first poem, which is Man of Ha'amea. This was her bemoaning the death of the prominent Tongan chief who was left with no heir. So it would be interesting if you looked up the geography of Newcastle, the history of the base of Sia, Fotu Afinema, trickling down, but is now empty, not a drop is left. So that's her talking about the fact that there's no heirs once overflowing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So It would be interesting to look up the geography and the history of these locations to understand the deeper meaning that Queen Salote meant in these poems. For unification, again, in the 1870s, Tonga adopted the British monarchy structure of government. Ha'amea only married Tuna, but they had no children of their own. So all of his children's mothers were commoners, which is why he was not allowed to marry them, and it was part of the monarchy's new constitution. This was a quote unquote protection put in place by the monarchy to avoid something like the 50-year Civil War happening again, which was started by that first and second Ulukalala father-son duo. And it was a way for the monarchy to absorb the remaining titles for a unified Tonga. Ulukalala is the highest title for those who are ruling in the name of the king and queen. A way to equate that in a way that you may understand is brief oversimplified history of the United Kingdom. You have England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. All are very uniquely different peoples. Wales is still technically its own country. They're people with vastly different languages. They look different, and yet because England took over those areas, now we have King Charles, who's the new king, and then we have William and Kate, our Prince and Princess of Wales. So they are the emissaries or the rulers of Wales, so that Wales doesn't rise up and have its own kingdom again, because they squashed a royal line that came out of Wales. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I put the UK as an example. So like His Royal Highness, then you have the Prince of Wales, Duke of Cornwall, Duke of Rothesay, Earl of Chester, Lord of the Isles. So those are all titles that were absorbed by the royal family and given to the royal family, so that power remained under one household. So that's what Tonga did, and that is why Ha'amea had his titles stripped from his lineage, and they were given to the current king's line. So if you now
Right.
look at the current royal family, they have those titles. Interesting.
Of Ulukala. Is there any evidence that he wanted to have an heir with Tuna?
It could have been that they just couldn't have children. If they adopted, I would say they probably just couldn't have children.
Oh, right, because they adopted a girl.
Yeah, they adopted a girl. And so Sione was adopted by the Tauveli Kuliha by family. That's why you have different last names now.
And none of them are right, which is so weird. I've never heard that.
I want to give out a shout out to the artist Vey in Hawaii. Have you met her before? She said she's your dad's first cousin.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, so she says she was like, "Oh my gosh, Chase, I totally know her. Send me the episode." So
Cute.
you would probably recognize her in person.
Yeah.
I messaged her and talked to her because she had uploaded the only tiny tidbits of information that were up. So I was like, "Hey, do you have anything else?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, there's so much about them." And so she set me on the right path. But good news is you have tons of people who have done research and history on this. I'm going to give you all of the stuff to go through, but big malo apito to everyone who has done work on that. Lots of people are alive that are compiling this and sifting through this, and now you can be helpful to them as well. And
Wow.
the woman who helped me get started on this track for Chase is also my 10th cousin. So the world is small. And now Chase is going to tell us a little bit about her thoughts at the end of this, and either the perspective change she had or how she's invited more joy into her life.
I just think it's so wild and it's so meaningful and thoughtful. Like, you've always been that girl that I was like, she just can do literally anything. And seeing you map out one of my ancestors' life is just it's so cool and it's so meaningful.
Yeah, like what we're saying was ancestry is cool, but seeing it about your own people is just wild.
Yeah, when it's your own people, it hits different. But doing that work is a different thing too. Like, this inspired me to actually try to do family history because they push it so much in the groups that we're in.
Yeah.
But I have always been like boring, like lame. But seeing you map it out for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to make a call.
You're like, wait,
I
this
need
is
to
so
go.
cool.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to hit up this person and this person and this person. I have so many people I need to talk to now. And it was just so meaningful.
Isn't that
I can't
crazy?
think enough. It was crazy. Especially the last name thing. I'm like, if I'm dating Tongan, I really need to make sure I have the last names right. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's a whole different.
His last name's like Hamea. I'm like,
You're like, hold on. I need to
pull
talk
out the
to
app. Do you
I
have
need to talk to
23
your
Me?
dad.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I gotta make some
And for those of you
calls.
who don't know, in the Tongan community, it is frequent that you end up starting to date like one of your pretty close cousins just because Tonga is so small. So that's why she's making reference to the fact she didn't know that she was from an adopted line. So now she's got to be on the lookout for other last names so she's not dating too close to home.
Right. Because that last name, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like a whole line I didn't know about. So I don't know. This is the coolest thing ever. I can't thank you enough. That
I'm
is so
so glad.
neat.
Thank you so much for letting me deep dive into this line. And I hope I didn't stress anyone out too much that's listening that is from your line. If they've done work on it, I only did it from a place of love. And hopefully this inspires your cousins and your parents or whoever that has felt a little stuck, that there is so much information out there for your line and there's so much work is still to be done on it. Things are looking up and things are really exciting with AI. It's going to be helpful. And I think things are really starting to heat up in the genealogy world. And people are a lot more interested in their ancestry than ever. I mean, we've seen how it's even exploded just over the past few months with the movie Sinners coming out.
Right. Straight
So,
up.
say one more time what you were saying about oral history being difficult with second
Oh,
generation.
right. Right. So, especially if you're somebody who has like a parent whose first language is Tongan, and especially if you're half like me, a lot of times people talk about Tongan parents not talking very much and not sharing. And almost sometimes it's out of way of humility not to brag about your history, where you come from, depending on what that history is.
Mhm.
Or maybe if you were like, when you were explaining to me, to make your lineage look good, let's say the king was the bad guy. You know what I mean? So depending on how the history is written, they might not want it to repeat it to you in a certain way. Like skeletons in the closet, keep
And I
them there.
kind of feel like that might have been why there was the last name change with you guys because your dad is from Tongatapu, right?
Yeah, he's from Tonga. So you remember when you were talking about Liahona?
Yeah, he's from like the city, the main island.
Yeah, so the village Kahawa, I
Oh
believe,
yeah.
is right by Liahona, and that's where he grew up.
Yeah. So it would make sense and it would behoove his adoptive family to probably change his last name if he was a part of a so-called possible plot to be king of Oahu.
Right? To overtake. And to me, I'm so like, I don't care. Whatever is true is true. That's what it is. You know what I mean?
And also,
But
you're born into these situations where you're like, I'm not trying to be king. I used to be here. But
right, I'm just here.
that's the lineage
Exactly.
you come from. And so that it does make sense why you would have very little information as to why your different last name or people don't talk about it because I know people really respect and love the current monarchy. And so to be like, oh yeah, we almost ended you would maybe not be who
Right.
your family.
It was always between those three names, Tauveli, Kuiapai, or Potowaine. And it's funny because when you say that, it's like, oh, actually, like,
All three are adoptive.
right, they're,
Still valid, but not
yeah,
blood.
right.
Family, but not blood.
Exactly. Exactly. And how eye opening and how also relieving to know that like you can still track and trace down everything. There's even, with more and more people doing like DNA testing, you'll find out the truth, right? Like, because people having kids out of wedlock, a lot of that's really, really common in the islands, but not acknowledging who,
Everywhere. I mean, I've found
right,
plenty of it in my own
everywhere,
mind.
right, literally everywhere.
People
But
have always had skeletons in the closet.
exactly. But I think especially since you're like oral history, like not documenting or checking, fact checking is really common with Tongan ancestry and genealogy. That probably happens a lot more. And I feel like instead of ancestry, maybe people are having some ancestry. And that's why I'm like, let's like make sure that we're not
Yeah.
related. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I remember being so frustrated a decade ago when I was the specialist for the North Shore. It was a lot harder. We still had technology, but the leaps and bounds that have happened since then. I was so stressed when you sent me a Polynesian ancestor, but I was like, no, I'm gonna try. And wow, just wow, there's so much. I really do think you're gonna find so much on this line. I also know that there is so much more on your pre-Ulukalala dynasty. I know for a fact it goes back to marrying off a Samoan princess to someone in that first dynasty in order to create peace between Tonga and Samoa way back when in like the 14 or 1500s. You've got Samoan in there, you've got all sorts of, you've got these strong ties to Fiji, lots of cool stuff for you to dig through.
I'm so excited. You really did just inspire me to do a whole lot more. That was crazy.
Seriously, whenever you do find something, if you end up talking to your parents and memories, they get stirred up or whatever, send me a voice note and I will put it in the next episode. But I think it's so funny because it's like, I really can just have people back and back and back for more episodes if I wanted to, just because it keeps going. This was just one patriarchal side of your father's. We didn't even look into your mom's side. We didn't even look into your dad's mom's side. So it's never ending.
Right. Like the
I'll let that overwhelm you though, but
what is your real last name, Chase? Not Tom Bailey.
Yeah. Hence also why I was like, we're just gonna name episodes first names because I think this is gonna keep happening. Because it's happened for other people I've done this for. So I'm like, we'll do first names. That's your name.
Oh my gosh, I have so much to do.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being with me and coming on and being my guinea pig and dealing with all of my technological issues. Hopefully
that was amazing. I'm so excited to tell everybody.
Malo for listening to this episode. That is thank you in Tongan. Well, it's thanks. Malo apito, if you care. Anyways, if you are related to this line and want to add more information, email us. Please email us corrections or anything. We would love to read them out in future episodes and feature them on our Throwback Thursday segment, which is completely dedicated to updates from prior episodes. We do have content that comes to you every single day, but Thursdays are literally dedicated to that, okay? So give me the info, correct me. I love it. You're welcome to send that via video or voice note explaining, or you can type it out for me to read. Or, I don't know what that was. All right, going on. Or if you're just on this family line and want to give us a shout out that you learned something or whatever, give us a shout out. Any shock, any disgust, any joy, whatever it is. You're welcome to also send those in. We love it. If you're unrelated, but this podcast still gave you some feelings that you'd like to express, the good, the bad, and the beauty, Like I said, we don't discriminate. Let us know. We love words of affirmation around here. Direct message us across all platforms, but the easiest way to get a hold of us will be through our email, which is connectivecollective@gmail.com. That is FH for family history. Connective Collective, FH@gmail.com. And, give us a review if you feel like it. We don't care. We're not looking forward to those at all. We are not sponsored by anyone so far. If you would like to change that, please reach out. And I just want to say we are not sponsored by FamilySearch.org. We literally just want you to understand that you can do this for free. This will remain a free resource that aims to entertain but also inspire anyone to pick up their genealogy journey. We always start with our guests getting connected to FamilySearch.org if they're not already on it. All outside resources are found through messaging others who have added to their ancestors' profile and the rabbit holes that sends us on, or the records on the free websites. If you are ever stuck on Family Search, they have resource centers all over the world that are free for you to access, and we are happy to help you locate one if you feel lost. You will be helped as little or as much as you'd like by a specialist at these centers for free. What I love about these centers, as someone who is a family history veteran, when you access your free, I can't say it enough, free account, If you access your free account from Family Search while physically being in one of these Family Search sites, you get access to all of the awesome but expensive other databases online because of their partnerships with Family Search. While you may have hit a wall in your genealogy while hunting at home, maybe, just maybe, it's only a curtain. If you want to sponsor us, please don't hesitate to reach out. It would be much appreciated. We love you. Crowdsourcing information is what allows this collective to connect. Thank you and malo for being a part of Connective Collective.